Sonic Forces, a name that incites fiery debate amongst the most die-hard of Sonic fans even 5 years after its initial release in November of 2017.
When Sonic Forces was released, it was met with disappointment and hate from the community. However, the majority of the fans and the critics' final verdict on the game was that it was very much just average. There was nothing too terrible about the game and there's nothing too great about the game, and that is exactly why I am here today to tell you that your opinion is in fact wrong.
Sonic Forces, I was led to believe it was just kind of mediocre, a big step down from Generations, but, you know, not the worst thing ever. But no, this is not just mediocre. It's not just somewhat disappointing or a bit worse or somewhat of a rehash that could have used some more unique aesthetics. It's terrible, truly awful. Does it reach a baseline level of quality where it isn't completely broken? Sure, I guess. Does it have a decent percentage of 3D moments? Yes. But who cares if it sucks?
I want you guys to look at this picture from the credits. There were only 3 people that designed the levels for this game. 3. And to add fuel to the fire, after doing some research, it turns out that the 2 level designers never worked on a Sonic game before. Are you serious? And get this, the lead level designer only worked on Lost World. Lost World!
Johnny, that's a game! Johnny! I'm done! I just ain't no! Oh my god! Oh.
Is that Tails? Whoa, what is going on?
The majority of Sonic fans are having a blast with the game right now. Which, can I say, by the way, how happy I am? The fact that after all of the heated discourse and constant battling within the community, that Sonic Frontiers actually managed to pull it off.
I'm sure that you have seen one of these types of videos before, whether it would be from some big boy creator like Charlie or Mutahar, some medium scale ones like Chowmix or Fadeo Games Cage, or from very small creators. And in all of these reviews you would hear a resounding, the game is good, but it has a lot of flaws. And that's respectable, people can have their opinions on a certain game, whether it would be Sonic or Mario. However, I would like to show my perspective about Sonic Frontiers, that despite all of its flaws, despite the standing, this is the best Sonic game of all time. Now I know that people who visit my channel for the first time would think that either I am insane or I haven't played any of the good Sonic games. And I will say right now to the new viewers, I have played or watched many of the Sonic games that are good, bad or mediocre. I have finished the adventure series, Sonic Mania, Lost World, Forces and Colors recently, and they're all pretty good games. However, with the release of Sonic Frontiers, something clicked in me once I finished the game. Something that I haven't felt since the first time I finished Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 for the Sonic franchise. That was that the game that I finished was an outstanding experience. With the other games that I played or watched, there was always a caveat to it. With Sonic Mania, most of the levels were remixes of old ones, Sonic Lost World, the Mario aesthetic and bad story, Sonic Colors and Generations, again the bad story. With Sonic Forces, I thought that we would return back to the roots of great gameplay and awesome story, but once I finished it, I thought it was Well, the story couldn't make of itself what it wants to do. Is it a serious war story or a happy-go-lucky we're on in a team? And classic Sonic's gameplay is horrendous. The modern Sonic and Avatar stages were enjoyable, even with what is perhaps the GOAT game for many people in the Sonic franchise, that being Sonic Unleashed, with its gorgeous graphics, best boost stages by far, and an amazing story. Despite all that, most of the time you would be playing a God of War ripoff. Now, before you all throw your pitchforks at me and burn me till I die, I respect your opinions about it being the best game in the series. I can see it. However, I play Sonic games for Sonic and his friends, not to be a furry Kratos. Like I was saying, in the many adventure games that I was playing or watching prior to Sonic Frontiers, there was always a caveat to it. However, once I finished Sonic Frontiers, I felt joy, fulfillment and happiness to the extent that I can confidently say that this is the best Sonic game of all time. So for that I need to explain my points in 3 different sections, that being the story, gameplay and cyberspace. And for these 3 sections they will be divided in mini sections, which are plot and characters for story, gameplay, open zone, combat, and an underrated feature a lot of people don't talk about actually. And for cyberspace, my main critiques and why I still kinda enjoy it. Now before I start with the video, I wanna say that the whole game is gonna get spoiled, so if you haven't played the game yet, click off the video and watch my non-spoiler video of the game right now. And yeah, if you enjoy the video, leave a like and subscribe, it helps the channel a ton. Alright, so before we begin with that, I wanna issue out my negatives first, before we begin with the main portion of the video, of which there aren't many, but they are glaring and huge. While running in the open zones, you'll notice how stuff just pops in out of nowhere. This is without a doubt the worst pop-in I've seen in a AAA game ever, until Pokemon Scarlet and Violet released. And even with that game's release, Sonic Frontiers still has one of the worst pop-ins in a game I have ever seen. Now at the start of the game's lifecycle, people thought that it was the game's engine, the Hedgehog engine 2, that was the issue here. However, as time went on, people realized that it was the Switch being the issue for the pop-in. I know, crazy right? The ending of the game is clearly rushed, and the Supreme Battle is a disappointment when you fight him. And there are probably a lot more, but that are just minor nitpicks that I have with the game that some have been fixed actually as of writing this video. Like the Elder Coco now being practically the same as the Hermit Coco, the Starfall slot machine now can be disabled in a boss rush mode, which is great to see, and I hope that the rest of my issues gets fixed in the next 2 updates. But even if they don't, it doesn't distract from what an amazing experience this game is. So let's begin with the story of the game.
Coming up, Starfall Islands. How exciting!
You tracked the Chaos Emeralds here, right? Let's find out what drew them here.
So what is it about the story that makes it special? Well, let's just say that it is a breath of fresh air for the franchise after a decade full of Sunday morning cartoon types of stories. Even if I liked Sonic Colors and Sonic Lost World, I cannot stress enough how much better the overall reception of these games would have been had they had a good story beside it. But even if the meta-era types of stories didn't happen, I would say that Sonic Frontiers stands on its own. So what is the plot of Sonic Frontiers? Well, it starts off with Eggman trying to get the tech of the agents by using his new AI, and then he gets sucked into the Stone Throne. Then we cut to Sonic, Amy and Tails getting to the first of the Starfall Islands, and we see the logo of the game. Not gonna lie, I like how the game goes from a very happy, upbeat song to an intense one the moment the tornado experiences a turbulence. And just like that, Sonic and his friends get separated from each other and get sucked into cyberspace. Sonic escapes cyberspace, and once he escapes, he talks to a voice in the sky which immediately tells him to collect the Chaos Emeralds and destroy the Titans, which kicks off the main story. Immediately, once you get into the open zone itself, you'll notice something different about the game. Previous Sonic games, despite being how good or bad they are, always had a very upbeat start to it, or very action based. But not here, the story takes a more melancholic approach of loneliness, which actually works. Now some people will say that this is not how a Sonic game should be like, and while I do see what they mean, I like the different approach that Sonic Frontiers takes with its story, as it allows us to see a different take on Sonic storytelling. It may not be perfect, but it takes a bold new approach that I respect and I want to see more of. Anyways, after we get the first Chaos Emerald, we meet Amy, who is trapped in a cyber cage. We free her, Sonic gets consumed by a cyber virus of sorts, and he goes to get the second Chaos Emerald. From there, we get to see what one of the Titans looks like, a giant Evangelion-esque robot controlled by Sage, our new character. After a short fight, Sonic gets thrown, he collapses, gets up and continues with his journey. And yeah, that is the main gist of the story right up until this 4th island. You get to the island, save your friends, explore the open zones, get the Chaos Emeralds and fight the Titan. However, Sonic Team throws in a huge surprise for the plot, which is the engines, more specifically how they look. Yet, this game out of nowhere drops the biggest bombshell. The Ancients are the ancestors of the Chao and Chaos.
I don't believe this. I had Sage run a diagnostic on the recorded genetic data of the Ancients, and then against archives I have with me. They're relatives of Chaos, the god of destruction. After countless years, their DNA corroded to the point they were completely transformed into a new species. Some kind of radiation affected them for eons, making them unrecognizable. Except to a genius like me.
So after all these years of nothing about the Chaos Emeralds, all of a sudden we get the biggest lore drop of all time, since like what, 2008 with Sonic Unleashed. I didn't expect that. The first time I saw the Agents I was like, wait a minute, is that Chaos? Alright, enough of the plot, for now, since this is how the game cooperates within the first 3 islands. Let's talk about the characters themselves, of which there aren't many of, by the way. Sonic Team decided that with this game, the story would be more about the characters, more specifically, what makes them, them. I know it sounds cringe, but that's basically how it is. Now let's say you get back 5 or 10 years back in the past and ask a Sonic fan that in the future they will get a story with great character interactions, a story that takes itself seriously, huge lore drops, and amazing supersonic boss fights, all while in a semi-open world setting. Everyone will think that you are weird because people thought that this is how Sonic is going to be from now on, but after the failure of the mid to late 2010s, here we are. Let's first start with the character of Sonic. Now I wanna make this clear, this is my take, and if you disagree, it's okay, I respect it. But hear me out on this one. I think that this is the single best interpretation of the Sonic character we have ever seen in a Sonic game. Like, please ask me this, how did we go from Sonic Forces to this? How did we went from the garbage dump to the best 5-star hotel in just one game? That doesn't make any sense. Now I know what you are going to say, but hear me out. This game not only shows a more human side to him, the likes we haven't seen since the late 2000s, but also that badass side too. I swear to God, the moment the first supersonic boss battle started, I had the biggest smile a human has ever seen. The music reminded me of the adventure games, and showed me that yes, this is what Sonic is, this is what he should have been this whole time. He should not have changed for the average Joe. He should have stayed like that and people would not care. We also see him pushing himself to the limits and showing us who he really is. A badass guy who is not only grounded in reality, but will also do anything for the people he loves and cares about the most. That's who Sonic is and who he should have been throughout the 2010s. Every time I think of the stories of these games now, I'm just thinking to myself what the hell Sonic Team were cooking, or more specifically, Sega themselves. Amy is back once again and I don't really have any complaints towards her. Aside from how she was portrayed in Free Riders and Generations, her character was doing okay throughout the mid and late 2010s. With Sonic Frontiers, we see a more platonic side to their relationship, and honestly, I think that they should continue with that approach to their relationship. Except the Arch comics, which were weird, I'm not gonna lie, Sonic never really had a relationship with a girl, and to see that the closest he'll get to a relationship with someone is platonically with Amy, I think that makes the most logically of senses out of any other options, which is a breath of fresh air if I'm being honest. Her arc is about love in all forms, and her arc concludes in that she needs to spread the love to the whole world, even if it takes her and Sonic far apart for a while, which I thought it was nice to see. Eggman is still goated, and we also saw a bit of his human side from him throughout the game, which is great. Big is here, for some reason. He's just here for the vibes if I'm being honest. Now let's talk about what I consider to be the MVPs of the game from character perspective. While Eggman, Amy and Sonic were all great and showed to us a glimpse of their full potential as characters, nothing came close to how Knuckles, Tails and Sage are in this game. I adore them and How they were written made me appreciate them more as characters. Man, Ian Flynn definitely did some miracles to the story, am I right? Anyways, let's first talk about Knuckles. I absolutely hated how his character was in the 2010s, except for Boom, which I know it might sound hypocritical, but since Boom was in an alternate universe, well, that was before Sonic Frontiers canonized sticks, but let's not talk about it. I didn't mind it too much. Like, yeah, outside of the context of the show, it was bad, but once you understood the show, it all made sense. But excluding Boom, he was treated awfully throughout the 2010s, even a bit in the 2000s, but I didn't mind it. He was still himself, even if he had those glaring issues. However, in the next decade, those issues were cranked up to 11, and he was made to be an absolute dumbass of an Echidna, and not to be the guy who he once was. So imagine the shock I had once I saw the Knuckles prologue. Before watching it, I was a bit nervous if Ian could get him right. I mean, this is the first time he is making a dialogue for a AAA game, but he absolutely nailed it. I'm not gonna go too much into details here, but in this animated short film, they really brought back Knuckles. The badass stoic warrior with a vulnerable side towards him is what I loved about him. What also returns is the banter between Sonic and him. Now it has a relatability factor to it, since they now banter like bros, like they should have been this whole time. I love how they referenced the Echidna downfall in one of the cutscenes in the middle and near the end of Ares Island. There wasn't that much he could do in the game besides helping the Cocos, and even helping them has that relatability factor to it, since he and the Ancients both experienced a cataclysmic event in the form of the downfall of their ancestors. And since he's gonna be playable in the game in late 2023 with Amy and Tails for the first time since 2006 in a mainline Sonic game, they both have a chance for redemption regarding their playstyles, since for how they are characterized, Sonic Team landed the mark. Oh Tails, my small boy Tails. What have Sega done to you after 2006? Now I'm gonna preface another hot take here, in which maybe a lot of you will agree but maybe not. The downfall of Tails' character started with Sonic Unleashed. Ever since then he has been getting progressively worse and worse and worse and worse, yeah, you get the idea. In just 5 short games, he went from a prodigy who stepped out of Sonic's shadow to become his own thing, to a smart coward who can't do anything without him. Now, in Sonic Unleashed he wasn't that bad, but I'm pretty sure that he can handle these guys with his gadgets. And another thing that I didn't like is how he was sidelined more often. Now in Sonic Lost World he came back from a more prominent role, and I liked it. Story still sucked balls, so that doesn't change anything. And then finally Sonic Forces, the game which pissed off a whole community with one cutscene. The one where Tails gets cowarded by Chaos Zero. Not 6, not 5, or 4, 3, 2, 1, no, 0, and gets saved by classic Sonic. Congratulations! You have successfully butchered a character whose whole arc was to become his own thing and to step out of Sonic's shadow with this one scene. Now, it wouldn't be as bad if he, for example, hadn't fought Chaos, but he literally did 19 years ago in his 4th form. What the fuck were they doing with this? Anyways, Sonic Team had a huge job in their hands with Sonic Frontiers. Amy and Knuckles' character were handled amazingly, but if they don't land the mark with Tails, all will fall down. And to my surprise, not only did they handle him amazingly, but they redeemed what I was talking about just right now. So let's get this out of the way quickly. They established that he is smart and friends with Sonic. So far, a basic start. But then in the same cutscene, he also seems worried about Sonic's condition, which has been getting worse ever since he landed on Chaos Island. You can see it in the animation, by the way, really cool detail. So yeah, we are already off to a good start. After we make a pathway to one of the islands, thanks to the oddly conveniently placed detect robot, we find another Coco, which is the most important aspect of his character arc in the game. Previous Cocos reflected the other characters too, in a way, but not quite like Tails' one. He's the direct reflection of him towards the past decade and a half of his characterization, and throughout Chaos Anad they both grow, culminating in this one cutscene where everything gets revealed. I'll let it talk for itself.
Sonic, am I a burden to you?
Wow, and how did you come to this well-thought-out concern?
Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
Dude, relax! You've got brains like Eggman, speed like me, and can fly with your butt. It's okay if you still need help sometimes. That's just part of growing up.
When did you get to be so insightful?
I have my moments.
They say the bridge is out.
I'm sure we can fix that. I'll have a look around.
In this one cutscene, everything that was wrong about Tails comes back at him and makes him grow to become a better person. This was it. This was the moment where I knew that the story understood the core fundamentals of the Man for Heroes, and I could not be happier than this. Eventually, the Coco goes into the afterlife and Tails confronts Sonic that to unlock his full potential, he needs to go alone for a while, which will be strange, let's face it. He has been in every mainline and spin-off game ever since 1992. But it feels like a natural progression of his character. It feels like the right thing to do, and although it will be a bit bittersweet that Sonic and Tails won't be together for a while, there's not much that we can do. Hopefully we get a spin-off for both of these characters in the near future. However, the biggest surprise to me and many others was Sage. In previous Sonic games, whenever they introduce new characters, they have a pretty mixed opinion on them. Some are good and had gotten a fan base over time, like Blaze and Silver and Styx too. Some are pretty bad, let's just say that. But none had quite the impact as when Shadow was first introduced, and that's why he stayed as a series staple for over 20 years. That was until Sage was introduced. The first human character in a Sonic game that had an importance in the story since Merlina from Sonic and the Black Knight. That was a while ago anyways. Her character arc might be the basic AI turns into human stuff, which is fine in of itself. However, the added touch of her and Eggman's father-daughter relationship is something that I'm glad it got added into the game. Eggman even respects her pronouns preference, which is just an average Chad moment, let's be for real. Okay, enough of the characters of the game, let's continue with the plot of it. So after you finish the third Titan boss fight, you get into Rhea Island, and then you have to disable the 6 giant towers, which basically kicks off the third act of the game. Once you get there, Sonic's condition is at an all-time low. You can see him suffering while he is just standing still. Anyways, once you finish shutting down each tower, a cutscene pops up, explaining what happened to the Ancients. So, who are they? They were a space civilization on their own planet with very advanced technology, and also had the Chaos Emeralds on their side. However, one day they had to flee their planet due to an entity coming to destroy it. After seeing their planet getting destroyed, they flee into the cosmos. After that, we see how Sonic gets slowly corrupted by the cyber virus he had throughout the game, and Sage questioning why doesn't he stops when he can barely stand, to which he replies with just a smile and continues forward, while Sage disappears yet again. After that, we see how the Ancients got to planet Earth. They were pulled by the Master Emerald here. We still don't know why yet. It creates a mystery for the future, which I'm curious of. Anyways, we get a glimpse of how they were living, and also how they were storing their memories into cyberspace, before the Elder Ancients gets interrupted by what I assume is a high-ranking ancient to tell him that the entity that got their home destroyed, it's back, and they need to fight back. After the cutscene, we see Sonic yet again struggle to walk, even harder this time around, and Sage finally understanding who Sonic is, with her at the end saying,
Farewell, hero.
in the pre-last cutscene of Rhea Island, we see how the Titans were created. They were created by the Chaos Emeralds for the sole purpose of destroying that entity. The Elder Ancient says to the guy who is creating Giganto that if they fail, then a group of Ancients will go towards the Master Emerald with Chaos Emeralds, to which the younger Ancient says that hopefully this time it won't happen. And then the big fight happens, with the Ancients losing it. However, one of them proposes to lock the entity into cyberspace, with it costing their lives. The Supreme Commander does the ultimate sacrifice by starting the seeding process of the entity, to which the others follow command. And then we see Sonic fall into the cyber virus, and for a brief moment he dies, and is followed by his friends and Dr. Eggman and Sage getting back. And then all is revealed. The voice that has been guiding us all along has been that entity and is now free and ready to destroy the world. And to return Sonic back to the world, his friends hold hands together. Yeah, let's talk about that scene briefly. I'll be honest, I didn't really mind it, but I think that it could have been a lot better and people have taken notice of it. A lot, and I mean a lot of people hated how anticlimactic it felt and how it wasn't just right, with many saying that this is where the game falls off story-wise. And I can see where they are coming from. With that one scene, everything should have fallen down. However, with how good the characterization was, the game just holds enough to make it to the end. Anyways, Sonic comes back to life, he teams up with Eggman and Sage, collects all the Chaos Emeralds in Orion's Island, beats the Supreme, and him and Sage with the Supreme Titan goes to fight that entity, which is called the End, and it's a moon. Now, I wanna say that fighting the manifestation of death itself in a Sonic game is the most interesting concept ever. The closest we got was with Solaris, yet the execution was alright. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot more than Supreme. It actually was hard and made me think of what I should do to not die. However, I expected a lot more from the final boss than just a Galaga ripoff. Anyways, after a cue to you with a scene that is breathtaking, seriously, that just made me wow myself. Sonic kills the End, all the while Sage sacrifices herself to soften the blow that the End may have made. His friends return back to life and they reunite, and Eggman is all alone on a cliff mourning Sage's death. After that, Sonic and his friends leave the island and Eggman revives back Sage with a very interesting detail that no one talks about. You see, when the End talked, mostly there was a very weird glitch effect, and that same glitch effect appeared when Eggman revived her. So that means that A, Sage is corrupted with the End, or B, it simultaneously came back with her. And yeah, that was the story of Sonic Frontiers. Even if the plot was very basic, I love the characters in it. Everyone had a purpose to the story, and not just Sonic, and even if the other three characters weren't playable, well, until late 2023 that is, the story was still amazing, and I'm excited for what the future holds. So that was the story. However, the story is not enough to make a game good. It needs gameplay, obviously. Now I'm gonna be the one to say that sometimes Sonic games don't need an amazing story and deep characterizations. Even if I clowned on Sonic Colors and The Lost World early on in the video, I can confidently say that these games were good. The gameplay was unique and fun and gave me a really good challenge trying to either finish the levels or to get an S rank. It's also games like the classics Sonic Generations and Mania are still remembered to this day. They offered an amazing gameplay that stood the test of time and are remembered as one of the all-time greats. So how does Sonic Frontiers stand up to them? What makes the gameplay awesome? Well, it's an open world game. Well, more specifically an open zone. Alright, to describe the game you have to listen to me, okay? take Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64, mash their genetics into one and put cocaine into it. That's basically Sonic Frontiers. A mix of Breath of the Wild meets Mario Odyssey, and I think that this playstyle fits Sonic pretty well. So well in fact that I would not mind if most of his games are open zones. Now I do want to see some of the classic Formula linear games to stay obviously, however I feel like for Sonic to evolve into something new, Sonic Team needs to stick with that formula. So what do you do in the open zone to progress the game, you ask? The progression in this game may sound difficult, but once you play it, you will understand it. You have to defeat Titan in each of the main 4 islands by collecting the Chaos Emeralds, which requires keys from Cyberspace, which requires Cyber Gears from the Guardians that you have to fight. You also have to collect memory tokens for each of the islands to progress the main story and also unlock some side cutscenes that add a little bit to the story. I recommend that you get them, they are pretty good overall. It's a pretty basic progression, but it works for the game and it's kinda addicting if you ask me. Once you start playing the game, you are hooked until the end of it. The game is also filled with puzzles which are very easy and very fast, except for 3 at the end of each island. Yeah, for whatever reason, Sonic Team decided to add some unnecessarily long puzzles at the end of the first 3 islands. The crane one was the best since it was the most inoffensive out of the 3. However, I have soft spot of hatred towards the first and third puzzles. If I went into details, I would be here all day, but in short, they are bad. You can also upgrade your stats by going to the Hermit and Elder Coco. Hermit Coco for the attack and defense, and Elder Coco for rings and speed. Now what is an open zone gameplay without unique environments and biomes? Well, credit to Sonic Team and Sonic Frontiers, because despite Kronos being split in 3 parts, all of the islands are unique to each other. Kronos, Rhea and Uranus Island are all residential areas in a green grassy forest biome. Ares is a war desert island mixed with some residential areas, and Chaos is a volcanic island in the sky filled with many Eggman techs and war cannons that are left from the ancients. The music also complements each of the zones. With Kronos, Rhea and Uranus Island, you have the piano and violin galore. With Ares Island, you have the instrumentals that fit the desert vibe perfectly. With Chaos Island, weirdly enough, a Halo-esque soundtrack fits the vibe of an isolated war base perfectly. Each of the islands have a unique flow to it that complements the game. Kronos is the tutorial island, so of course it's gonna be more chill. Ares takes everything that you have learned to the next level by making the island bigger and making the flow of the game even better. It's why a lot of people think that it's the best island in the game. Chaos Island is weird though. The flow is ruined by those forced 2D sections, and it's not like the previous two islands prior to the Chaos Island. The island has many different small islands to it, which I get it, they want to experiment more of, but I think that they should have toned down the 2D and unified some of the smaller islands. Yet, weirdly enough, I like it. On my first playthrough, I kinda hated it, having to go to one small island just for a challenge, and the path to it is on the other side of the map. But after careful rethinking of where should I go first and skipping most of the 2D sections, the island ain't half bad actually. Kronos is where everything you learned from the past islands comes into full place. The puzzles are still easy, but also requires a bit more challenge to them. The flow of the island is great and the enemies are great to fight. Genuinely my favorite island by far. Speaking of enemies, this brings me into my next point. The combat. That's right, the most surprising feature to me in the gameplay. Sonic games aren't known for their combat systems, yet they are also not different to it. They tried to have unique combats, but fell flat for whatever reason. I do kinda think that Sonic 06 and Heroes had the best combat before Sonic Frontiers, cause they didn't really ruin the flow of the game and it was still fresh. Shadow the Hedgehog had guns. Do you want me to elaborate any further on why it's the worst? Will color me surprised when I tell you that Sonic team have finally found a great combat system that doesn't ruin the flow of the game. The combat is genuinely the most fun I've had with a Sonic game. Now with the combat system obviously comes the skill tree, which unlike the other games that I played, doesn't have some small upgrades that you unlock once you get a new skill, but a new ability which you can use for the combat, and it refreshes the playstyle of the game. The skill tree is divided into two pieces. You have the normal one, which can get all the skills until the third island, with the skill points you get from killing enemies. And then you have the mandatory story ones, which unlocks each one skill after you break free Amy, Knuckles and Tails. And they are all unique, if some are basically the same. They all play into finding the enemies, and chaining each attack can result in some pretty neat combos. However, you can have a good combat system without the enemies. So how are they? Are they diverse? Do they offer something different to each of them? And do they progressively get harder? Surprisingly, yeah. The game has the most diverse array of enemies that you can fight in a Sonic game. You have the standard soldiers that gets upgraded the longer you play, you have these robots that get your Chaos Emeralds and you have to chase them to get it back, you have these dog enemies for some reason. Point is that even without the Guardians you still have a wide range of enemies to fight. However, where the combat starts to shine is with the Guardians. These are basically normal Sonic boss fights in an open environment. In total, the game has 12 original Guardians, with 6 variations of already existing ones, which are Tower and Ninja. Many of them have unique gimmicks to their respective Guardians. Like with Sumo, you are enclosed in a small area, and unless you defeat him, you cannot escape him. My favorite Guardian has to be either Master Ninja or Ghost. With Master Ninja, you have to utilize every move you have learned to the fullest potential, and where the Guardian is at its most aggressive state. The Ghost, however, is the most unique one. Instead of having to fight him the normal way, you have to side loop 4 small towers, all the while you are on a time limit because Ghost is slowly draining your rings. Yeah, that was pretty hard but enjoyable too, but the combat doesn't reach its fullest potential up until the Supersonic boss fights, which, oh my god, they are insane. Supersonic has never felt this good in a mainline Sonic game ever. I already went into details about how Sonic Frontiers perfected Supersonic, so go and check it out when you can. But in short, the combat is bombastic, the music is awesome and creates some of the best set pieces in a Sonic game ever. Before we get into Cyberspace, I do wanna dedicate this section to a very underrated feature in this game that not a lot of people talk about actually. And that is Sonic Team's integration of normal Sonic levels in the open zone. Now I know that I may sound crazy, but I'm right. They did integrate 12 original levels in the open zone seamlessly. 1 in Kronos at the diamond structure, 2 2 in Ares, where you have to go and collect the other Chaos Emeralds, 3 in Chaos, I think that they are pretty obvious, and 6 in Real Island, each of them being vastly different than the other one. My favorites have to be in Chaos Island, where you can get a Colossus-esque boost stage, a 2D boost stage akin to the Rush series, and a weird mix of a boost stage with some Sonic 06 vibes. Yeah, they are not perfect, but it's clear proof of how Sonic Team can implement the classic Sonic stages into an open environment. Speaking of them, we have to talk about Cyberspace now. I have no idea what went into Sonic Team's head when making them, but they are so weird. First of all, the controls are weird. When I go to play a Cyberspace stage, I immediately notice how different the controls are for both the open zone and Cyberspace. In the open zone, they are smooth. Sonic controls pretty much like his Sonic Adventure 1 controls, and that elevates the experience quite a bit. In the Cyberspace though, you pretty much control like dog shit. He runs very slow for some reason, and this is a game that the titular character goes fast. It's fine though, as long as we have original levels and teams. 66% of the levels are pulled from old games, and 3 of the teams are Green Hill, Sky Sanctuary and Chemical Plant.
Why?
Now, to be honest, I don't mind the inclusion of Sky Sanctuary in this game. Aside from the 2 mobile games, this is the second time in 11 years since we were in a Sky Sanctuary level, so I'm glad that we're back there. Green Hill and Chemical Plant though, Jesus Christ. In every single mainline game since Generations, we have visited Green Hill and Chemical Plant at least once, or a variation of the levels. I am genuinely sick of these level teams. I don't know if Sonic Team has the meshes or textures for the other levels, but it's so abysmal to see it. Now I know that we have an original highway/city level team, and to be honest, this and Sky Sanctuary fit Cyberspace the most. However, I don't want to see any more of Green Hill or Chemical Plant. It also doesn't help the fact that 66% of the Cyberspace stages are from old games. The only original levels are 1-3, 2-3, 4-2, 3, 4, 5 I think, 7, 8 and 9. 9 out of the 30 levels are original. The other ones are pulled from old games such as Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Generations and weirdly Sonic Adventure 2. Yeah, some Sonic Adventure 2 levels were pulled like City Escape, Meadow Harbor, Skyrail and Green Forest. Yeah, that was weird. Yet, despite all that, I weirdly liked Cyberspace. It provided a new way of me to replay older levels in a new and a different way, and with the homing dash it provides a new way of speedrunning those levels. Yeah, a glitch that was left in the game files is now probably a new game mechanic for the series. I wonder where have I seen this? Before I end the video, I just wanna talk about Sonic Team and what an amazing job they did with Sonic Frontiers and are still doing now too. I have never seen a company having a huge 180 for its reception in such a short time. They went from being called incompetent, lazy and poorly managed to now climbing back up to being back to their best. And the results are showing too. Recently, Update 1 of Sonic Frontiers released and changed a lot of the game too, and there are 2 more updates left. Add on to the fact that the director of the game, Morio Kishimoto, has made an official Twitter account where he would answer to fans' feedback and changes and a lot more. So for that, Kishimoto-san, thank you very much. And for the whole Sonic team who had to fight for 1 more year of development to release this game. Sonic is one of my childhood franchises that I grew up with. I've been through its ups and downs ever since I was 6 years old when I played Sonic Golf, and to see it climb back up to where it was, now bigger than ever, it's great, and I love it. I hope that the momentum of 2022 keeps continuing for the far future. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was why Sonic Frontiers is the best Sonic game ever. Thank you all for watching, I hope you liked the video. Leave a like, subscribe and comment down below what you think of this video. Alright everyone, that was it for the video and I'll see you all soon. Peace!